Hello champions and happy Thursday. Today we're going to talk about multiplying mixed numbers. I know you're going to do a great job, and so does Mr. Smiles. Let's dive right in. Let's start with a few do now questions. Round 38 and 1,726 10,000ths to the nearest thousandth, hundredth, tenth, and whole number. Let's start with thousandth. Which digit is in the thousandths place in 38 and 1,726 10,000ths? It's the 2. The 6 is going to tell me which way to round. So is it closer to 38 and 172 thousandths or 38 and 173 thousandths? It's closer to 38 and 173 thousandths. The 6 tells me that I should round up. Which digit is in the hundredths place in our number 38 and 1,726 10,000ths? The 7 is in the hundredths place. The 2 is going to tell me which way to round. So, what is it closer to? Well, this time it rounds to 38 and 17 hundredths. Let's round to the nearest tenth. Which digit is in the tenths place in our number? The 1 is in the tenths place. The 7 is going to tell me which way to round. So what do I round to? Well, I round to 38 and 2/10. Now I need to round to the nearest whole number. That means the ones place. Which digit is in the ones place? The 8 is in the ones place. This time, the 1 is going to tell me which direction to round. It is closer to 38. Now you try a few. Round 25 and 1,937 10,000ths to the nearest thousandth. When I round to the nearest thousandth, my answer is 25 and 194 thousandths. Now round it to the nearest hundredth. When I round to the nearest hundredth, I get 25 and 19 hundredths. Now round to the nearest tenth. When I round to the nearest tenth, I get 25 and 2/10. Now round to the nearest whole number. When I round to the nearest whole number, I get 25. Find the perimeter of these shapes. Let's look at the first shape. Remember, to find the perimeter, I add all the side lengths. When I add decimals, I need to line my decimal points up. 2 and 1/10, 3 and 85 hundredths, 5. What place is that 5 in? This one right here. It's in the ones place, so I'm going to write it as 5 and 0 hundredths, and then 4 and 2/10. I can fill in zeros anywhere I need to. When I add, what do I get? Well, 5 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 is 5. 1 plus 8 is 9, plus 2 more is 11. Remember, I bring my decimal straight down. 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 3 more is 6, plus 5 is 11, plus 4 more is 15. So the correct answer is 15 and 15 hundredths centimeters. Now you try one. What's the perimeter of the shape on the right? Well, I can line up my decimals. 3 and 60 hundredths, 4 and 8 hundredths, 5 and 0 hundredths. When I do, I get 8, 6, 3 plus 4 is 7, plus 5 more is 12, 12 and 68 hundredths meters. Now let's add some mixed numbers. I'm going to add 2/3, 2 and 2/3 plus 1 and 1/2. First thing I need to do is draw my T-chart and fill my numbers in. 2 and 2/3, 1 and 1/2. I can't add these fractions like they are. They need the same denominator. What's the least common denominator going to be for 2/3 and 1/2? It's 6. When I change 2/3 so that the denominator is 6, what's my new numerator? It's 4. When I change 1/2 so that the denominator is 6, what's my new numerator? It's 3. 4/6 plus 3/6 is 7/6. Now, I can't leave an improper fraction. so I need to change it to a mixed number. When I change 7 over 6 into a mixed number, what do I get? 7 over 6 is the same as 1 and 1/6. So I'm going to put my 1 on the whole number side and my 1/6 on the fraction side. 2 plus 1 is 4. So I get 4 and 1/6. Now you try one. What's 3 and 1/5 plus 2 and 5/6? Check your work with mine. 3 and 1/5 plus 2 and 5/6 is the same as 6 and 1 over 30. Now let's get into today's lesson. Today we're going to multiply mixed numbers. To do that, we need to change them into improper fractions first. Let's look at our first example. Find the area. This shape has sides of 5/6 centimeters and 1 2/3 centimeters. So to find the area, I would need to multiply 1 2/3 times 5/6. The first thing I need to do is change 1 2/3 into an improper fraction. Let's do that now. What's 1 times 3? My whole number times my denominator. It's 3 plus 2 more is 5, and the denominator stays 3. So I have 5/3 times 5/6. When I multiply those two fractions, what improper fraction results? Well, 5 times 5 is 25. 3 times 6 is 18. So I get 25 over 18. My last step would be to change that back into a mixed number by dividing 25 divided by 18. 18 goes into 25 once, with 7 left over. So my final answer is 1 and 7 over 18. When I multiply by a mixed number, I need to change it into an improper fraction. Let's do a couple more examples. What's 2 and 1/4 times 3/4? First, I need to change 2 and 1/4 into an improper fraction. What's 2 and 1/4 written as an improper fraction? Well, 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 more is 9/4. Now I can multiply that by 3/4. What's 9/4 times 3/4? It's 27 over 16. Now I can divide to change that into a mixed number. How many times does 16 go into 27? It goes in once. 1 times 16 is 16, and there are 11 left over. So the correct answer is 1 and 11 over 16. Now you try one. What's 3 and 1/2 times 2/3? Remember to change 3 and 1/2 into an improper fraction first. 3 and 1/2 times 2/3. 3 and 1/2 is the same as 7/2. When I multiply that times 2/3, I get 14 over 6. When I change that into a mixed number, I get 2 and 2/6. So my answer is 2 and 2/6, or, when I simplify, 2 and 1/3. Sometimes I need to multiply mixed numbers times whole numbers. Let's do an example together. 4 and 1/5 times 2. The first thing I need to do is change 4 and 1/5 into an improper fraction. What's 4 and 1/5 written as an improper fraction? Well, 4 times 5 is 20, plus 1 more is 21 over 5. Now I can multiply that times 2. When I multiply 21 over 5 times 2, what improper fraction results? I get 42 over 5. My last step is to divide to change that into a mixed number. Do that now. When I divide 42 divided by 5, what mixed number results? 5 goes into 42 8 times, with 2 left over. So the mixed number is 8 and 2/5. Now you try one. What's 3 and 2/3 times 4? Don't forget to change 3 and 2/3 into an improper fraction. 3 and 2/3 is the same as 11 over 3. When I multiply that times 4, I get 44 over 3. When I divide, I get 14 and 2/3 as my new mixed number. Now let's try multiplying two mixed numbers together. What's 1 1/3 times 2 1/2? The first thing I need to do is change both of those into improper fractions. Let's change 1 1/3 first. What's 1 1/3 written as an improper fraction? It's 4/3. What's 2 1/2 written as an improper fraction? It's 5/2. Now I can multiply. What's 4/3 times 5/2? That would give me 20/6. Now I can divide to change that into a mixed number. When I divide 20 by 6, what mixed number do I get? I get 3 2/6. That's the same as 3 1/3. Let's try another example. 2 3/4 times 1 1/3. When I change 2 3/4 into an improper fraction, what improper fraction do I get? Well, 2 times 4 is 8, plus 3 more is 11/4. When I change 1 1/3 into an improper fraction, what do I get? I get 4/3. Now I can multiply. What's 11/4 times 4/3? It's 44/12. Now I can divide to change that into a mixed number. When I divide 44 divided by 12, what mixed number do I get? 12 goes into 44 3 times with 8 left over, so I get 3 8/12. When I simplify, that becomes 3 2/3. Now you can try two problems on your own. Let's start with the first one. What's 1 1/4 times 2 1/5? Don't forget to change your mixed numbers into improper fractions first. 1 1/4 is the same as 5/4. 2 1/5 is the same as 11/5. When I multiply those together, I get 55/20. When I change that into a mixed number, I get 2 15/20, or 2 3/4. Now let's do another example. What's 3 1/2 times 2 1/2? Don't forget to change both mixed numbers into improper fractions first. When I multiply 3 1/2 times 2 1/2, the result is 8 3/4. You've done a great job on this video. Now it's time for IXL practice. You can choose IXL practice M23, M24, or M25. Try to get a SMART score of 100.